This shouldn't have worked. But somehow, a homemade airplane built by a tiny team became one of the fastest piston-engine aircraft ever created. For a brief moment, it looked like this machine might change aviation forever. But the deeper you look into its story, the crazier it gets. Back in 1979, two men were talking about airplanes. Not just any airplanes, racing airplanes. The kind that pushed limits and made even experienced pilots nervous. John Sandberg and Bruce Boland weren't interested in building something ordinary. They weren't trying to make a comfortable aircraft or a practical one. Their target was something far more ambitious. They wanted to build a machine that could fly faster than 500 miles per hour. Now, that number might not sound shocking today, but for a propeller-driven aircraft built by a small private team, it sounded almost ridiculous. Most people chasing speed records had huge resources, proven aircraft, and years of racing experience behind them. Sandberg and Boland were about to challenge all of that with an idea that existed only on paper. And here's the crazy part. Their goal wasn't simply winning races. They wanted to challenge the world speed record itself, the kind of record that gets written into aviation history books. Imagine being told that a homemade airplane could compete with some of the fastest racing machines on Earth. Most people would have laughed. But these guys didn't. They started asking a dangerous question. What if everyone else was wrong? And once that question entered the room, there was no turning back. Because the next challenge wasn't dreaming about speed, it was figuring out how to actually build it. In 1980, construction finally began. And this wasn't a case of ordering parts and snapping everything together. Almost every major component had to be built, modified, redesigned, or completely reinvented. Piece by piece, the aircraft slowly started taking shape inside workshops across California. At first, progress seemed straightforward. Build the airframe, install the systems, test everything. But reality had other plans. Every time the team solved one problem, another appeared. A component worked perfectly on paper, then failed in testing. An aerodynamic idea looked promising, until it created a different issue somewhere else. Months turned into years. Then years kept going. What started as a project became an obsession. The aircraft was constantly evolving. Wings were adjusted, systems were changed, new ideas replaced old ones. Nothing was considered finished. Every modification had one purpose: more speed, and that's what made Tsunami different. Most aircraft are designed around balance. Tsunami was designed around performance. Everything else came second. The deeper the team pushed, the more obvious it became that this wasn't going to be a normal airplane. It was becoming something else entirely. And at the center of it all sat a secret weapon that would eventually make aviation fans around the world stop and stare. Because this aircraft wasn't powered by an ordinary engine, not even close. If speed was the goal, then power was the answer. And John Sandberg knew exactly where to find it. The heart of Tsunami was a heavily modified Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same legendary engine family that powered famous World War II fighters. But what went inside Tsunami wasn't a standard Merlin. It was transformed into something much more extreme. At first, the engine produced around 3,000 horsepower, which was already insane. But the team wasn't satisfied. They kept pushing. More modifications followed, more testing, more experimentation. Eventually, output climbed toward 3,800 horsepower. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a giant military project. This wasn't a factory-backed racing team. This was a small group of determined builders creating one of the most powerful piston-engine racing aircraft ever assembled. The engine featured a two-stage supercharger. It used anti-detonation systems. Cooling solutions had to be specially designed just to keep everything alive under extreme conditions. Because when you're chasing 500 miles per hour, every weakness gets exposed, every vibration matters, every temperature spike matters, every tiny mistake matters. And yet somehow, the engine worked. The numbers coming out of testing were starting to look unbelievable. In fact, some people couldn't believe them at all, because what happened next seemed almost impossible. The aircraft was about to prove that all those years of work hadn't been wasted. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Testing. This is where dreams usually collide with reality. It's where bold claims either survive or completely fall apart. For the Tsunami, something different happened. The aircraft started showing exactly the kind of performance the team had been chasing from the very beginning. And then, it crossed 500 miles per hour. Just like that. A homemade airplane had entered territory few piston-engine aircraft had ever reached. People inside the aviation community started paying attention, not because of marketing, not because of hype, because the numbers were real. Years of redesigns, sleepless nights, and endless problem-solving were finally producing results. For a brief moment, it felt like everything was coming together. The aircraft wasn't just fast, it was frighteningly fast, the kind of speed that changes expectations, the kind of speed that makes competitors nervous. Suddenly, this wasn't a strange experimental project anymore. It was a legitimate threat. And naturally, there was only one place left to prove it, the biggest stage in air racing. But here's where things get interesting. Speed wasn't actually Tsunami's biggest problem. Something else was waiting around the corner. Something that horsepower couldn't fix. On August 17, 1986, Tsunami finally took another major step forward when test pilot Steve Hinton flew the aircraft for its first flight. After years of work, the machine was finally alive, and before long, it arrived where every serious racing aircraft wanted to be: the Reno Air Races. This was the ultimate proving ground. The best pilots, the fastest aircraft, no excuses, no shortcuts, just speed. And when the Tsunami appeared, people noticed immediately. It looked different, it sounded different. And more importantly, it was fast enough to make competitors pay attention. Lap after lap, the aircraft showed flashes of brilliance, moments where it looked unstoppable, moments where it looked like the future of air racing. But then, something would go wrong. Not always the same problem, not always at the same time, just enough trouble to prevent the aircraft from fully delivering on its potential. And that became the frustrating pattern. Every time Tsunami looked ready to dominate, another issue appeared. A setback, a failure, a new obstacle. The speed was there. Everyone could see it, but speed alone doesn't win championships, and what happened next would become the biggest challenge in the aircraft's entire story, because the machine capable of flying over 500 miles per hour was about to be held back by a problem no engineer ever wants to face: reliability. And this is where the story takes a frustrating turn, because by now, nobody was questioning Tsunami's speed. That part had been proven. The real problem was whether the airplane could keep working long enough to use that speed. Almost every racing season seemed to bring a new challenge. Electrical failures started appearing. Cooling problems showed up when the aircraft was pushed hard. Landing gear issues refused to completely disappear. Sometimes the fixes worked. Sometimes they created entirely new problems. Imagine spending years building one of the fastest piston-engine aircraft in the world, only to lose because of a mechanical issue. Again, and again, and again. That's exactly what the team was dealing with. The frustrating part was that Tsunami kept showing flashes of greatness. During certain laps, it looked unbeatable. The aircraft could run with the very best competitors in the unlimited class. Spectators could see it, pilots could see it. Even rivals knew this machine was dangerous. But racing doesn't reward potential. It rewards results. and results remained frustratingly out of reach. For the builders, every setback created a difficult choice. Do you accept the aircraft as it is, or do you tear it apart and try again? Most teams would have stopped. Most teams would have accepted that they had already achieved something remarkable. But that's not how the Tsunami operated. Instead, they went back to work. More redesigns, more modifications, more risks. Because somewhere underneath all those reliability problems, they believed a champion was waiting to emerge, and eventually, they got the proof they were looking for. A moment that justified years of sacrifice. By 1990, the team had invested countless hours trying to unlock Tsunami's full potential. And finally, everything clicked. At a race in Sherman, Texas, the aircraft delivered the performance everyone had been waiting for. Not just a fast lap, not just a promising run. A victory, its first major victory. To outsiders, it might have looked like just another race result. But for the people behind the project, it meant everything. This wasn't simply about winning. It was validation. Proof that all the sleepless nights, failed tests, redesigns, and disappointments weren't wasted. For years, critics had questioned whether the aircraft could ever deliver on its promise. Now they had an answer. Yes, it could. For a brief moment, the future looked bright. The aircraft had shown it could compete. The speed was real, the concept worked, and perhaps most importantly, confidence returned. But here's the thing. The team was never satisfied with winning a single race. That was never the ultimate goal. Remember the dream that started everything back in 1979? The world speed record. That target never disappeared. In fact, the closer Tsunami came to success, the more obsessed everyone became with chasing it. And that's when the project entered its most ambitious phase yet, because they weren't done modifying the airplane. Not even close. Now hold on. Before we get to the final chapter, there's something important to understand. Tsunami was never a finished aircraft. Even after years of flying, the airplane continued evolving. Between 1987 and 1991, the team repeatedly rebuilt major sections of the aircraft. Structural components were redesigned. Magnesium parts were introduced to save weight. Wing positions were adjusted. Control surfaces were refined. Every change had a purpose. More efficiency, more stability, more speed. The aircraft that existed in 1991 wasn't exactly the same machine that first flew in 1986. It had become something sharper, something more extreme, something built specifically for one goal: breaking records. Then came the opportunity. In 1989, the team prepared for a serious attempt at the world speed record they had chased for nearly a decade. This was it, the moment everything had been leading toward. Years of engineering, years of risk, years of sacrifice, all pointing toward a single run. But then, disaster struck again. A landing gear failure forced the attempt to be abandoned. Just like that. The dream slipped away. No record, no historic headline, nothing. At least not yet. The team refused to quit. They believed another chance would come, and for a while, it seemed like they might be right. But what happened next wasn't another setback, it was something far worse. September 25th, 1991. Nobody knew it at the time, but this would become the final chapter of the Tsunami story. John Sandberg was flying the aircraft himself. By now, he knew the airplane better than almost anyone on Earth. He had spent years building it, improving it, and chasing impossible goals with it. But that day, multiple problems began stacking together. Faulty airspeed readings created confusion. Strong winds complicated the situation. And as the aircraft approached for landing, the margin for error kept shrinking. Then, everything happened at once. The flap system failed. Suddenly, the aircraft rolled unexpectedly. At low altitude, there was almost no time to recover. Imagine being in that cockpit. Years of work, years of dreams. Everything depends on a few critical seconds. Then the aircraft crashed near Pierre, South Dakota. John Sandberg was killed. And just like that, the Tsunami program ended. No dramatic farewell. No final race. No record-breaking finish. Just silence. For everyone involved, it was devastating. A project that had consumed over a decade of effort was gone. The dream was over, or at least, that's what it seemed, because strangely enough, the story wasn't finished yet. Not even after the crash. Most racing aircraft are remembered for what they won. The Tsunami is remembered for what it almost became. And honestly, that's what makes the story so fascinating. Think about it. A small team decided to challenge some of the biggest names in aviation. They built an aircraft largely by hand. They created a machine capable of exceeding 500 miles per hour. They competed against elite racers. They chased world records. And for a while, they looked capable of achieving all of it. Yes, the project suffered setbacks. Yes, reliability problems held it back. And yes, the story ended in tragedy. But none of those things erased what Tsunami accomplished. If anything, they made the aircraft even more legendary, because people don't always connect with perfection. They connect with ambition, with risk, with impossible dreams. The Tsunami represented all of those things. Even today, decades later, aviation enthusiasts still talk about it. They study the photographs. They analyze engineering. They wonder what might have happened if a few failures had gone differently. Would it have broken the world speed record? Would it have dominated air racing? Would it have become one of the greatest racing aircraft ever built? Nobody knows. And maybe that's why the story survives. Because some legends aren't remembered for the answers. They're remembered for the questions they leave behind. Tsunami never became the record-breaking legend its creators dreamed of. But maybe that's why people still remember it. A homemade machine that pushed past 500 miles per hour and challenged the impossible. So, do you think it could have broken the world record? Let me know below and subscribe for more incredible aviation videos.